Hello, I'm Steve Wolf, and welcome to The Fire Break, which is sponsored by Team Wildfire. Team Wildfire is developing innovative techniques and technology for putting out nature's most destructive fires. Today, I'm here with Nicole Henningfeld, and Nicole is making it easier for us to understand the vast wealth of information that's being disseminated out there about how to make ourselves safer from wildfires. So it's not that there's a ton of new knowledge out there. Don't put the stuff that can burn too close to your house. Maybe don't live too close to places that are burning. However, how we hear the information has a huge impact on how we feel about it and whether we act on it. Nicole, welcome to the Fire Break. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Good. So tell me a little bit about your business and what you're working on.
Yeah, so the business is equal parts in-person services and then online digital education. I am not one to be stuck in an office, so if I have the opportunity to go play in the woods with a chainsaw, I would much rather be doing that, or pulling weeds, whatever it is that the client needs. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that with all this wildfire information, we're reaching more people. It's not just wildfire folks and Forest Service and emergency managers, it's also landscapers and contractors and developers. We need more people in the building and design world to know to know wildfire.
Yes, absolutely. So, so how do you put what your spin on this in a way that makes it more likely that more homeowners are going to do the right thing? So
Just make it more
to copy a
approachable.
phrase from a movie title.
We just have to make it more personable and make it, remove the fear. A lot of what the media does is just drive fear. So people are like, oh my gosh, fire is going to happen. And when it does, it's going to be bad and it's going to take everything. But that's not, it doesn't have to be the truth.
It can be the truth, and for some people, it has been
Hmm.
the truth, but for the most
Hmm.
part, it's not, is what you're saying. Are you saying that we're
Yeah, it
getting a
doesn't have to be the truth.
distorted view of reality from the media?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Billion percent.
Right. If you turn on the news, you get the impression that only bad things happen every day.
The world
And
is ending.
right, and apparently there's a lot of good things that are happening, and I really want to highlight a lot of those on the fire break because there is hope.
Absolutely.
That
Oh, absolutely. Hope is
right,
not dead yet.
right. I mean, while embers may carry fire into your attic and destroy your home, we also have this concept called embers of hope, which means that we believe things that can be better, and
Absolutely.
we give them oxygen. Then hope grows.
Hmm.
So you're saying that I don't have to have a barren perimeter around my home that looks like a lunarscape. What are some of the things that I could plant in there? And does that include zone zero or what some places call zone one, right? Uh,
Ugh. I hate that people are just giving new names to the same thing and now we're all just confused about what we're talking about. But
right. What we're talking about
my
is
favorite
the
thing,
first 5 feet around your home, right? And depending
the
on which
immediate
website you're in, it's either
zone.
zone zero or zone one.
Yes, we'll just harken back to the original name, which is the immediate zone.
I love that.
Um, I tell people, and I'm always very excited because like doing a lot of wildfire myth busting is one of my favorite things to do with folks. But
Yes.
I tell them a moonscape or a hardscape or just putting ugly, non combustible landscaping down is silly and unnecessary, but also not as good for you as just having native plants or, um, a xeriscape of some kind, even if it's not native, but it's from a similar ecosystem. It has the same drought conditions. You can have a really beautiful yard in a wildfire prone area. And indeed, you should, because we need this full cycle to happen. We need the fire and then the ash and all the nutrients go back into the soil and then, things grow.
So
It's,
the
it's
problem is
just
not
sort of
fire,
like
right? The problem is
Oops.
the problem is building your house in the center of where these fires happen.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is fine. And I think it's even a good thing. And this is going to, I don't know, people might either like keel over dead when I say this, but I think it's really important that we do keep building into the WUI, but we have to do it intelligently, and we have to do it intentionally. We can't just slap together these cookie cutter houses with the same mulch base around the home
Right.
and then go, oh my gosh, I don't know how this happened.
Yes. Okay. So if we find this beautiful home site happens to be, in the WUI or beyond, what are some of the strategies that we would use in developing that site and in the home construction that would allow us to be there and enjoy that without putting ourselves at stupid risk of burning down?
Yeah, I mean, just stick to the system. We have the whole home ignition zone model, and that will not lead you astray. If you want to build out in the middle of the woods, go for it. It's beautiful. You're not going to hear your neighbor's dog. Well, sometimes you hear your neighbor's dog, but generally, you don't have all the same noise stressors that you do in town. So, yeah, go build out there. And then keep in mind that if you have half an acre or 10 acres of land, you are now responsible for it. So you have to do on that land what we haven't been able to do for the last 120 years. You have to go out and you have to thin your woods. You have to see what your ecosystem type is. What is your fire regime? How often should fire happen? And what severity should you expect? Because wildfire exists on a spectrum for everybody.
Okay.
North America gets 40 million lightning strikes a year. Like,
Wow.
we should be on fire a lot. But this fire shouldn't be this extreme. So if more people build out in the WUI, then we can start managing it little piece by little piece, because it's not just the Forest Service job to go out there and clear the woods.
What it sounds like what's the obvious solution here is that we get Congress to pass a law against lightning.
I think
Believe me,
that is
they would think of something like that, and they would think that it would work, right?
yeah, I'm sure we can put some large fence in the sky, just put a little fence around it,
Yep.
and that'll capture all the lightning, and then we'll never have a lightning caused ignition. You're so
There you
smart.
go.
You just solved all the world's problems.
We're gonna build
More
a
fences,
wall.
more things. Yep.
That's it. All right. So we're probably not going to get rid of lightning, uh, and we probably shouldn't go play golf when it's lightning and hold our clubs up in the air. But we could thin the trees around our homes, and if we go into any given space, knowing that we're going to modify that space to make it more wildfire resistant, then we're not really so limited in terms of where we think about building. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and then we can put in fire resistant native or non-native species because fire resistance fire resistant, and we
Mm-hmm.
can landscape with that. Okay, this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sound so bad.
I don't
Uh,
think so. And I don't
right?
think it sounds impossible or outrageous.
No. But what are some of the species that you recommend for this?
I mean, it depends on where you live. For you in northern Colorado, it's different even from me in southern Montana. Is different from people in California. It just depends on where you're at and what's native to you. Folks in Utah are going to be a little more limited in places than some
Right?
of us in the Rockies, but it all depends. Just stick with your natives, your native plants. They're going to be fire adapted more times than not. I'm sure there are a couple of oddballs here and there, but just plant intelligently, or just uh, let nature figure it out on her own. And just if and when fire is approaching, maybe just do a quick mow.
A quick mow.
Quick
Okay,
mow
quick mow.
with your lawnmower that might also throw sparks. God forbid.
Now, Nicole, you're in Missoula. Is that where you grew up?
I was born in California, but I
Okay.
was raised in Montana, so
So
I got to see.
you're a non-native species yourself, but hopefully not invasive.
Don't tell anyone.
All right. And what brought you to Missoula?
um, my parents were escaping California right after
Okay,
Y2K.
I
So
see.
they were like, wow, you know what sounds great? Moving our 13-year-old daughter to the boonies. And I was
And
like, yeah,
yeah, you
that's
can
the
end
worst
mall
decision ever.
life, and right. Well, that's good. But it turned out to work out well for you, huh? So,
Hmm.
and now you're, having huge influence in helping people to be able to enjoy their homes where they are, which is
I sure
amazing.
hope so.
How did you get into this, Nicole?
Um, it was actually 100% serendipity and just I don't know, God's hand, whatever you believe in. I was living in California. I had an internship in 2018, and I got to see the devastation in Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember hearing about it on the news, but nobody was saying anything about like how it happened, why it happened, what we could have done to prevent it. And I was like, there's got to be something, you know? So I spent months just looking through everything I could find online, and I hit a lot of dead ends. But it was actually when I moved back to Montana, another big serendipitous moment. I was introduced to the founder of the home ignition zone model of wildfire safety, and I got to work with him for a summer and help people not lose their homes.
And who's that?
That is Jack Cohen. He's a fire physicist. And what is his other big title? Fire investigator. So for the last 30 or so years of his career, he's been flying around the country to look at large wildfires and particularly urban conflagrations to see how the fire spreads from house to house, how it travels from, the wildlands to the urban center. Because it's not like fire is going to be like, oh, there's a red light, I got to stop and turn around.
Right. So did you feel like this was a kind of a mentorship moment
Mhm.
where someone who was doing something that you really admired, invited you into that world so that you could participate in that?
Absolutely. And it didn't happen right away. At first I was just another one of the whippersnappers on the crew, who was probably just overexcited about everything. But I made a point to stay in touch with him over the following years, and I'd email him once or twice a year with various questions or ideas. And, the most important thing that he did for me was never tell me like to stop trying, that I
Oh, that's
was
great.
just banging my head against a wall, and he was like, well, in my experience, this hasn't worked, but I mean, if you think you can try it differently,
Mm,
maybe just try and rein in your expectations. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to go gung ho. Let's do it.
right. It never
And,
works to tell people to rein in their expectations. And it
yes.
shouldn't, right? Because every amazing thing that's happened is a result of someone's insane obsession
Hmm.
and relentless pursuit to get it done. So
Yes, absolutely.
kudos to him for imparting that to you and to you for listening
Hmm.
to it.
Hmm. No, I mean, the
Uh,
best part is I can still call him up at any point and be like, can we go get coffee downtown? And he's like, absolutely. See you tomorrow. And I'm like, yes.
so he told you to, pursue what you believe in, because what you believe in is likely true, founded, and positive. But I'm curious, what about on the other side? There's probably a lot of things that people believe about wildfires that aren't true, and holding those beliefs is actually destructive to them and to the world generally. What would you say is the most destructive, incorrect belief that people hold about wildfire?
That fire is bad and shouldn't happen and should be snuffed out. The dead by 10 rule, has to be out by 10 a.m. the next day. Put it out. Smokey Bear, original Smokey Bear, I suppose.
The OSB?
Yep.
Okay. So the belief that fire is bad is one of the
Hmm.
things that's making fire worse.
Hmm. Well, and
Explain
one
to
thing
me,
that people don't
explain that a little
realize.
bit.
So America is a weird place for a lot of different reasons. But when you look at the history of the country, most of the people who ended up crossing the ocean to live here lived in places where fire didn't exist. So we have a lot of these old
Oh,
holdover beliefs from cool, wet climates. A lot of people moved here from the British Isles or from, Norwegian countries. And so they have no culture of fire. So for them, they're like, oh my gosh, there are flames. This is bad. What do we like? Full panic mode. But instead of working with the native tribes who were here and understanding what is natural and normal, and to be fair, there were people who were working with the tribe. I mean, it was an ongoing issue for decades. It was always very active in the political world in the 16, 17, and 1800s. Um, and it was a battle for people, especially um, what do they call them? The cultural burners, I think, down in Florida. Florida was
yeah.
always a real sassy state. So they were always doing their own thing. And with regards to fire, they were absolutely right to tell the federal government to bug off. um, and they were going to keep burning. But
We're from the government. We're here to help.
absolutely, we're here from the government, and we're going to tell you everything. But
Right.
no, just politically and culturally, America has so many disparate groups of people who all have different histories and views of fire, and trying to get everybody on the same page is just not going to happen. So we've ended up just postponing the inevitable and inevitably making it worse.
Okay, so how do we turn it around? I'm seeing that in some places the government is actually taking advice from uh, people who have knowledge in cultural burning
Mhm.
and starting to implement that. What are the other positive things that we're seeing, and what are the ones that we need to see more of?
Um, we're seeing a lot more effort, at least where I live, coming out of the federal government. Um, I'm seeing some working groups pop up. I'm not saying they're effective working groups, but they're trying. You have to start. You're going to learn and succeed by failing and doing, but you keep
Sure,
going. So we've got a couple different working groups, a couple different fire safe councils, and they're so used to just operating in their own realm of like, oh, the at USDA.gov world. And so they're having to think outside the box and go, how do we bring in community stakeholders? How do we bring in the ranchers and the farmers and the townspeople? How do we bring in different NGOs and other conservation groups? And how do we all start this conversation and have a productive conversation? So that's huge. Just
sure.
really getting that conversation started and facilitating it such that more voices are heard and can contribute to the conversation, because everyone has a unique perspective based on where they live and what they've experienced, and they all need to be heard because that's going to factor into future plans and policies.
Fascinating. So that was honestly, Nicole, one of my motivations in starting the Firebreak
Mhm.
podcast was my belief that, well, first, my belief in humanity, that we're an incredibly resistant and adaptive creature,
Mhm.
uh, and very creative, and that I believe that currently there exists enough information on the planet to, you know, amicably solve the wildfire problem, right? So something that works for us and works for nature, but that the reason that we're not there is because this knowledge is so uh, siloed, right?
Mhm.
This university knows that, and this other university knows that, and this fire department figured out that, and Australia, they know this, and Greece, they know that, but nobody's talking to each other, at a sufficient level. The information is not being shared, so everyone owns a little piece of the puzzle, but no one can see what the puzzle looks like. And so I was
100%.
hoping if we get these conversations started, locally and internationally, uh, it'll do just what you said. That
Mhm.
the various opinions will all be brought to the table, and then we'll be able to make sense of them. And that's how NASA went to the moon, right? Nobody at NASA knew how to get to the moon, but they knew that
Mhm.
if they got 60,000 contractors to all speak together and basically, provided the platform for innovation and what do you call the inner, I don't know. The Okay, I'm going back to platform, right? If they could make
My
the
brain's not
space,
helping.
right, for a lot of smart people to really come together, that they could nail this. And that's
Mhm.
that's what I'm hoping that goes forward.
I think
Um,
so. And I think one of the big things we have to do too is quit dropping my earbuds. One of the big things we have to do is start working with folks outside of wildfire. So it's not just people who
okay.
do GIS and wildland firefighting and emergency response folks or uh, disaster management. We have to be talking to landscapers and developers and city planners and urban foresters. We have to be talking to homeowners, and we have to be talking to our local compost facility.
So
It's
how
going
do
to
you get
be,
those conversations started, Nicole? Do you reach out to them? Do you encourage them to reach out to others? Do you set a forum for inviting people to these conversations? Where do you start?
yeah. Well, usually I just pick up the phone and I say, "Hi, my name's Nicole." But I really have no issue with cold calling, and I'll have some sort of script ready to go so that they don't just hang up on me.
Okay.
Yeah, I've made countless phone calls. I've hosted a couple of fire on tap events in my local community so that people come out to the local brewery or coffee shop or whatever, and we'll talk about fire. Hopefully when I have more advertising dollars, I'll have better turnout. But I had some really good small groups this past fall. Other things, it's a lot of marketing and just a lot of hitting the pavement. Like you have
Well,
to
I'm
go to
I'm
people's
really glad you're not
offices.
when-eyeing, when I get this, I'll be able to do that, and when I get that, I'll be able to start this. Like, you're starting where you are, working with what you got.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
really, I think, how every successful program gets started,
Hmm.
right? Doing the
Yeah,
best
I
you
can't even
can.
tell you how many hours I've put in, like literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours for free on this. It's just, it's not
And
going to
it's
be an
not for
immediate
free,
payoff,
Nicole. You're
but
you're building a better planet, and you get to live in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The payout will come later. So,
Okay. For now, it's the hard work part.
oh, I wouldn't say it's the hard work part.
The
It's the
fun work.
slow work. Yeah, it's the foundation, the part that nobody sees, and then all of a sudden there's going to be like this big thing built around it, and they'll be like, "Wow, that popped up overnight." I'll be like,
You're
"Let me tell
bamboo,
you
right?
what."
Like bamboo. It grows
Yep.
silently underground for 3 years, and then it springs up everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Anything else that you want to tell our audience? Words of encouragement.
Oh, so much encouragement. I mean, we have all of the opportunity to prevent this from happening again, ever. We just have to make sure that we have a non combustible house or structure or what have you. Just make sure that embers can't get in
Yep.
and you don't have extended open flame being held next to your siding or your eaves. Um, there's something else I was going to say, but
Or the completely
we have all the
exposed underside
opportunity.
of my wooden deck.
Yeah, just keep it clean. I mean, it doesn't have to be a terrible amount of work and it doesn't have to be super labor intensive. Just even if you hire the neighbor kid to like pull your weeds or something,
Yep.
like we can all do this together. And I'm actually in the beginning stages of putting a little nonprofit together. It's called Saws and Claws. It's based off of the group in Colorado, Saws and Slaws. I was hoping it would end up being Chainsaws and White Claw, but they don't have the money to sponsor anyone right now because of their little debacle last year. But so instead, it'll be Chainsaws and Bear Claws for our local grizzly team.
Okay.
Um, but it's going to be structured in the month of June because otherwise, May, Wildfire Preparedness Month, you've got graduations and parties and Mother's Day and Memorial. Like, no one's going to be paying any attention. All right. Everyone's having
Right.
mimosas until 3. So I'm going to do it in June. Plus, the weather here is better for us. Like in May, you're probably still going to get like the really wet, slushy, gross snow. No one wants to be out in
Right.
that. So I'm setting it up so everybody for the month of June, they can sign up for the competition through a platform that I'm using. And everyone's going to have the same homework every week, like an hour or less. We're all busy, kids, whatever. Nobody has time. But it's going to start with, understanding where you live. Like, what should you expect from fire? And then
Okay.
everyone's going to have the same homework due every weekend. So ideally, you will be out there at the same time as your neighbor. So if your neighbor's like, "Oh, gee, I'm afraid of heights. Can someone help me clean my gutters?" You'll be like, "Haha, I can do that for you, neighbor." And we can build a sense of community and
Community.
togetherness. And
Yeah.
we're all working on it together. Like this is a case of we are all in this together.
Yeah.
So just have everyone doing the same thing at the same time for the same reasons.
Yeah. Well, you talked about, what we expect from fire, and, what we should expect these days is the unexpected. Right? Because we
Hmm.
used to think we had a fire season. Now we have a fire year. We
Hmm.
used to think that, we're safe in December until the Marshall Fire burned down, a
Yep.
thousand homes on New Year's Eve. So we do have to expect the unexpected, but, you know,
Hmm.
let's start by at least addressing what we do expect, and then working our way, beyond that. For
Hmm.
folks who want to follow your work, get in touch with you, or hear from you, what's the
Hmm.
best way to do that?
They can email me, prepare@adaptivefirescapes, or you can find me at adaptivefirescapes.com, Facebook, Instagram, Adaptive Firescapes. I was going to try and do a TikTok, but I think I'm going to change directions on that. So I don't know even what my handle is on there anymore.
The Chinese
But
are
once
going
we
to miss
start
out.
gearing up, Well, I was thinking I would do Skyfire because I think that's
Ooh,
a great new mascot for the wildfire world.
yep.
Um, it's a little fire owl, but the name comes from the old Missoula Skyfire lab where they used to do a lot of lightning studies.
Oh, wow.
So now we'll
Fascinating.
have something in addition to Smokey Bear that doesn't have the whole propaganda history. Is
Okay,
that
new
naughty to say?
propaganda.
It's new propaganda. Brave new
Well,
world where we
Nicole,
embrace
I just have
fire.
to say, speaking with you, I'm really impressed with you and really proud of you. And I love that
Thank
you're
you.
taking something that you're passionate about and you're, making that the focus of your life and doing something that's going to really improve lives for a lot of people. So thank you so much for
I
what you're
sure hope
doing.
so. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole Henningfeld, thanks so much for joining me today on the Fire Break. And we'll see you on the next episode. Once again, Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire. Check us out at teamwildfire.com. And when I say us, I'm secretly revealing that I'm also the CEO of Team Wildfire. Anyway, thanks again. Look forward to working with you, Nicole, and my lovely audience here. Look forward to seeing you at the next episode.